I have so many things I'd like to ask. I'm going to keep it to two questions for the sake of time. But first off, just I was familiar with your work as an actor. Vince put me onto your music. Very, very much my vibe. I love Rap Genius. I'm super into the Easter eggs, like you were talking about. So when I hear something new that I love, the first thing I want to do is go online and figure out, like, ooh, what does this mean? What are the theories? So to have you here that I can directly ask you is very exciting. One of the first lines that really stood out to me hugely was on His Eyes. You said, they say tell the truth or the people can't feel you. And that lines up so much with our philosophy here, because Vince says in every single episode, be your authentic self. If you're not being your true self, you're being fake. So I'm really interested in hearing, as a Black man who's clearly very much for the culture, from Harlem, also a graduate of the New School, a vegan, a performer, how have you found it rewarding and or challenging to be your authentic self in this industry?
That's a big one. Wow. people say it's a great question. People say, like, where'd you go to school for acting? And I was like, well, life. Because you have to. I was like, that's the best school. Like, Yale couldn't tell me nothing. Because and that's a large part of technique. You got to know your audience, right? And so I've spent and a lot of Black people understand that in terms of wearing a mask, but you move accordingly. But when it comes down to the thing that with me is I never compromise my integrity. So I don't feel any way about playing to audiences. You know what I mean? But there comes a time when, like, some of the real slips out, and you just got to be okay with that. I feel like a part of my own, like, journey has been to lead with that and let people be more uncomfortable in some spaces. It's a time for that now. Like, you can't do that the entire time. Like, so anybody out there, you can't just come in the door with your guns out. You got to come in the door, see what's there, survey the scene, go back, draw up your blueprints, and then, strategically come with your guns out. But, figuratively saying that, just showing up, like, in spaces where they would normally be not so keen to see me the way that I truly am. And I've been doing that, here and there. But it is a struggle. It's not something that comes supernaturally, it does come supernaturally, but that's another.
Hey, I was about to say.
So I'm gaining more comfort in that regard, because there's a lot of levels to me, as you talked about that conflict between being in a urban environment and being like, about it, a thinker, and sort of navigating that. So, to be continued.
I love it.
Actually, to continue to follow up on that, just in line with you being such a multifaceted individual, another one of the lines that really, really stood out and stuck with me was, I needed a nurse, but got a notebook. And you also talk later about, I don't want to misquote the exact line, but about, like, using metaphors and allegories to be heard when people are ignoring what you're saying. And that really resonated with me as well. So I'd just love to hear anything you want to share about your journey of using art to express yourself, and how, as a Black man in this world where mental health is often not prioritized for us, and especially for y'all, music might have been an outlet in that way.
Yeah, it always has been. Like, it started with poetry without beats, it was a way that, and it happened. I can't even tell you, like, there was some specific moment. I really can't, recall at this moment in time, but I knew that every time something major would come up emotionally, like, I could write it down, or I could write something, and I could feel that catharsis happen through it. And so it just became the way to deal with things. And growing up in Harlem in the 80s, 90s, where it was cray all the time, like, I found myself with lots of work, because I was constantly transmuting all of this stuff that was coming through. So I mean, that's that line right there. I needed a nurse, but I got a notebook. I mean, if I was in the white community, I would have been in therapy, like, from 11 on. You know what I mean? They would have been taking care of me. But there's just it's like, somebody was even talking about this the other day. Like, you get 14 years old as a Black male, and if you sprout up too high, or even if you don't, like you're a man now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now we're threatened by you. We don't want to help you. Like this is all this stuff that ultimately does affect your mental health. So like my only outlet was art.
Wow.
You know, to really say the things that were going on in me. And I felt like even in that, I found myself being real cryptic. You know what I mean? Like when I read back over things, because I was figuring it out, you know. But I'm grateful because I did figure out quite a bit of things through that process.
You know, it's so powerful to listen to a powerful, well-renowned Black man speak about the necessities of mental health and what it is that you do therapeutically to keep yourself, you know what I'm saying, from having to deal with the ills of the world, especially in this country, if I could keep it real. I feel like you also specifically are able to channel that into your acting. Like, you know, some of the roles that I know you for are strong Black men roles. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it speaks to who you are. Do you keep that into consideration when auditioning for roles or when being considered for roles? Like, listen, I need to be portrayed, or we need to portray Black men as such. Otherwise, I'm not interested. Or is there nothing that you're
More and more? That's again, like you can't just go through the front door with the gun out at first. You know what I mean? Like you won't make it very far. They won't be asking you any questions about what you want. You know, your preference won't matter. But you know, as I continue down the you know, in the journey and gaining more I don't know, pull power exactly, or you know, etc. That's totally it. It's like if we're not you know, creating images that spark a feeling of empowerment in people, or just you know, catalyst for them to think, I don't like, what am I doing? You know, what am I doing?
Right.
So that's super important for me. I feel like there's been a certain level of serendipity and gotten, and I feel like, and many other actors will talk about this, like some roles reflect you in a way that you don't know, and you learn about yourself through that. But a lot of them are reflections of character that you already kind of are in touch with. And so like, I feel like the stronger you are in touch with those things, the more you see that reflected in your career. And I feel like that is what you are talking about, you know, in a lot of regards. It's trippy, actually. When you get into it.
But it works out. Okay, go ahead,
I'd love
Steph.
to lean in that just a little bit more real quick. Just this idea of knowing when to pull your guns out. Is there a specific moment or moments that as your platform and influence have grown that you've been able to kind of push for the culture in anything that you're working on?
Oh yeah, for sure. There's been a lot of little moments, but the most recent one, and I think that since we've already talked about it, was Emancipation. They sent me the script for it, and they were like, "We want you to read for this particular role," and I read it, and I was like, the script itself was just so amazingly written that I was pulled. But like when I got to the dude that they wanted me to play, I was like, damn. You know, like you read a little bit more, see, and I was like, no. And then I was like, Will Smith, you know, Antoine Fuqua. I was like, yeah, that's the universe. I can't do it. I ain't gonna be able to do it. And so I told my reps that, and they told the casting director, and blew my mind. They were like, so which role could you see yourself playing?
Wow.
Nice.
I
Wow.
was like, okay, jumping and that will appear. Other than Peter.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He's
one of us. One of us.
Other than Peter, there's this other character, you know, Caillou, but I already researched him, and he's supposed to be like biracial and all that stuff, right? So I was like, I don't know if that fits into your narrative, but 2 emails later, and it was like, no, put yourself, you know, you can do Caillou. And so, yeah, and it was just like that. And so then when, you know, like everything that he stands for, I was just like, yes, I have no problem being in a slave movie if this is the depiction. Because, you know, you can't be so picky that you take yourself out the game. You got to change the game from within the game. So, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's one of the downfalls of being like a revolutionary. You can revolutionary yourself right on the sidelines and not doing nothing. You got to be more viral. and get in the system and infect. And that was a good example of it. And me sticking to my guns, if you will. And it worked out, I think,
And we're glad that did. Bad tie.
Yeah.
Look, man, Mustafa, I'm about to get a little personal. I'm not. I hope this doesn't get too personal. But I know in the 70s and the 80s it was tough in Harlem. Growing up, that was an era when it was the get money era. It was a lot of drugs. There was a lot of stuff going on. Who were the integral parts of keeping you out of those mixes and keeping your head level and on a swivel? Who were the most integral parts in your life, coming up?
I mean, I got to give up, credit to Spirit overall, whatever you call it, God, Yahweh. But I've always felt guided, and I wasn't immune to any of that stuff. I had my run-in with crack, but then through that run-in, I saw where I was going. And I've always been astute enough to put, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, X, Y. I was able to figure out things and learn from other people's mistakes. And so I just saw like some of my favorite dudes blow up and become empowered and pedestaled, and then in front of us all just be decapitated. And I was like, yeah, I see that 2 or 3 times and like, I'm good. You know what I mean? So, and then there was moments where I tried to touch things because, desperation will lead you there. And I was not immune to that. But like my hand would get smacked by the unseen hand. And I would be like, oh, I can't even, oh, that was so loud. I can't ignore these prompts and these cues. So it was a lot of that, and being a Blerd myself, like, I was in school, the teachers they noticed me. And for whatever reason, I always had like 1 teacher or 2 teachers that would be like, tell them about that program or something. So I was like, they were inviting me to these Upward Bound programs and these like summer camps. And like, after a while I saw it like, okay, this is a long journey. Like I can't get fast money, but they feed me. There's a lot of pretty girls around. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a good environment. Like, so I would do my school thing real hard. But then, I come back to the block, get a little dirt on me. But there was always something that was calling for me. You know what I mean? And I try to bring my, my boys and friends in, and, they wouldn't. And I seen how that affected them. And that just was more inspiration. I was like, I'm no different than y'all. So if that's happening to you, it's going to happen to me. And, it was just various little things. But I really think between, God's guidance, however you want to, put it, my own discernment, and like teachers along the way helping me out, I just sort of like stayed away. And there was obviously moments where, it could have gone way, way, way worse, but it didn't.
I'm glad you did. Real quick, let me get this tie. So as a Blerd yourself, I mean, it's gotta be like mind melting when you get to work in a project that you saw in a comic book, you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that, or when you get to work in an anime. I'm wondering, like, when you did get to seal this role as Jet, which is would be one of my favorite animes. I'm just gonna keep it 100%. Did it throw you off, or were you already expecting the bullshit backlash from playing Jet, and the folks, because you know how it is. We know how it is in the United States. Like, folks is always, the race swap, blah, blah, blah. Did you weather it well? Was it a surprise? Was it not even that big of a deal?
No, I mean, fortunately, unfortunately for me, like, I got so much love for Jet.
Yes.
Like, they were every article was like, this shit is a dumpster fire except for Jet Black. Like it kept happening. So like, while I was like, oh man, our baby is going down in flames, like, they weren't saying bad, stuff about me. So, that was kind of helpful. But yeah, like, and I think, I liked it, and I love the anime, the original,
Yes.
I mean, obviously there were some things that could have been tightened up, but I feel like that was what the second season was for. So I was like, y'all crazy. That's what I thought. I was like, I was like cognitive dissonance. I'm not, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that was crazy. And for Luke and for Bushmaster as well. Like, is there any like? I mean, do you? If I, being regular old me, get the any type of opportunity to work on these projects, I think I'd hit the ceiling as a Blerd. Like, it's not just an acting gig. It's like, hold on, I'm representing the culture, and this shit came out. Like, does it hit you like that too, bro?
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, I have this thing where, like, for the longest time, I'm just starting to like research directors. I just focus on what's in front of me and don't think about anything else. And then once I break through, then I allow it to hit me. But like when it finally it took I had like 2 callbacks and and they had and I waited 2 weeks before they gave me a phone call. And I mean, I had already gotten it, but it was after the phone call when I hung up is when like, yeah, I just sort of went full tart, like, you know, in the middle of the room, like on my knees, like, you know, like fully, like, but like that's it. That's also the hood for you, you know. It's like delayed gratification. You know what I mean? Looking around, waiting for the shoe to drop. But yeah. I mean, it's yeah. It goes without saying. It's just been a major, you know, high for me. You know, being able to play, you know, characters like that because it's like it's in the lexicon. You know, it's forever that now. You know, and so.